man. So we'll do the formalities.
Yeah.
We're here with Pooch. Here with Brett Lewis, camper van builder. Is that how you classify yourself?
Yeah,
Camper van builder.
Yeah.
Maverick. all those words.
Yeah, Maverick. Yeah, that's what I'd open with for sure.
Wicked. So who is Brett Lewis?
And that is always a hard question. I'm sure you get it all the time, but I like to fancy myself more of a dreamer and someone who just wants to make cool things. I was thinking about it the other day and feel like there's something that I want to build, and I don't know what it is yet. And that's, I guess, what I'm in search of.
Yeah.
To build that thing, the last thing.
So you say you don't know what it is yet. You just know there's something.
Yeah.
So this might not be your final form.
No, I mean, I got into this basically just because I wanted to build stuff and didn't know what to do. And it was about the time that the whole van life thing started popping off on Instagram and all that. And I was like, oh, well, there's no rules there. I guess I can just buy one of these and see what happens.
Is that what attracted to you, the no rules?
Yeah, it really was, because, I mean, you want to build a house and then you're like, oh, I got to talk to these people in the city and get permits and all that.
Oh, we've had that. We were trying to get planning permission for a plot, and it's like,
yeah,
I just have to speak to people.
Yeah. So even like, it wasn't even like the nomadic thing of the van. It was just like, well, I can buy one of these and do whatever I want, and no one can tell me not to. So that was what drew me to it. It was just like, seemed like the easiest canvas for me.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but then now I've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, how long have you been doing it? So first off, this has taken a very unexpected twist straight off the bat.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting hardcore, love van life, love all this, and you're like, just seemed to make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I do love about it.
Yeah,
but
of course.
Yeah, it wasn't like, this is like gonna make me $1 million. You know? So
how long have you been doing it?
about 7 years, give or take.
Right.
There's and then like doing it more like having a shop and a little more like professionally, and having the LLC would be like the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And 7 years ago, what did it start as?
It was this van, Chewy was what I called it. Chewy the van again. And it was just like a Volkswagen van, 1986. Bought it for super cheap because it didn't really run that well, and bought it with another friend. Basically just called him and was like, hey, I don't really have any money, but you want to do something cool? And so he helped me buy it. We were planning on just flipping it and selling it.
Right.
And then ended up Airbnb-ing it, and then basically just started to get friends of friends who were like, yeah, I bought this Sprinter. I saw this van life thing. Can you help? And I didn't know what I was doing it, but I was like, I guess I'll help.
So you
just bought all these tools, so let's go.
So that sounds like a very organic start, which actually is pretty synonymous with everybody that starts. You know, they do one for themselves, and all of a sudden it turns into a business. It sounds like you were at the right time for that with the van life thing blowing up.
Yeah.
But had you fully subscribed to the van life thing at that time? Like you were living in a van, weren't you, at the time?
Not at the time I was living in a tent on the side of my friend's house.
Wow.
Nice.
Here in sweaty Austin, Texas. It was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Go to bed at like 2:00 whenever it was finally
Cool.
That's a stretch, but it's cool enough.
That's mental.
Yeah.
So you're living in the tent in the side of your pal's house in Austin, and then do you think that's what motivated you to go and then build a van to live in? Because that must have been miserable.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. That was probably only like 7 months of that.
Okay.
And then bought a older 4Runner basically, and was built like a little platform in there, and started living in my car and then my friend's like parking lot of their house. And so I was always like kind of against paying other people's mortgages. It always seemed like, when I first heard about like what rent actually was, I was like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
This is pretty insane.
Yeah, hear that.
Yeah. So was always just like against it, and was like, I don't want to do it if I don't have to.
Okay.
If I had a kid or something, then I'd probably be like, I should probably rent a house. But if it's just me, I don't need much.
Yeah.
So then really the van idea came to me being like, oh, I should buy a van for myself and do this, and then realized I didn't have any money to do that. So then I asked the friend, and then it kind of like twisted from there. It was like, how do I bring up that I actually just want to keep this to him, which never seemed right. So then we just started renting it, and so I never got that van.
That whole van rental scheme thing at the moment, like the outdoorsy and all that, that seems to be huge over here.
Yeah.
And it makes total sense because the land mass is mind-blowing compared to little old Scotland and the UK where we're from. Like, it is mind-blowing.
It's smaller than Texas, I assume, right?
Smaller. You can fit the whole
like
of the
whole
UK. The whole of the UK you can fit inside Texas 3 times.
Yeah.
You can fit Scotland inside Georgia 4 times.
Oh my gosh.
It's wild.
That's crazy. You probably throw a football to the other end of Scotland.
Yeah.
Well, not far off it. If you've got a good throw, you probably can. So, do you think that's why the van life thing really took hold here? Like, I know a few guys that do it in Europe and stuff like that, and people that do the sort of, yes, it's van life, but it's more the sort of staycation van, like the weekend van. It's not the long-term living van. Whereas everything that seems to be long-term living van seems to be rife in the US.
Yeah, long-term.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it really blew up first because there's so many national parks here and a lot of stuff to see, really, if you're here. So I feel like that really helped. And then the cost of living is pretty insane. So if you want to, it is kind of, I don't really agree with like it's an easy way to save money because you have to put in quite a bit of money at the beginning if you want to live in it long term. But it is an easier way for like young people to live, which is kind of a rabbit hole to go down because it's kind of crazy that you have to live in a van to save money to buy a house. Pretty wrong, but that's another story.
There's something innately wrong with that. So it seems to be something that's getting picked up a lot here. And do you think it's the high prices of rent? And I mean, rent in itself, some people can't avoid it, of course they can't, but you are just paying someone else's mortgage. Yeah. Do you think it's the high prices of rent that really contributed to van life's rise in pop culture?
And I think it's also the counterculture, like the new counterculture of it, like the 70s was like had that as a like a little bit, people were living in vans and stuff back then and traveling, and then it died off, and then I feel like a natural way of life is for those things to come back, and like it seems like the youth is jumping back in the van life thing, which is awesome. Yeah.
And to grab it at the right time must have just been phenomenal for you from a business point of view.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I feel like, it was weird to like start doing that. Something that I thought was pretty crazy, living in my car and stuff like that, and then slowly be like, oh, people want to do this too. Yeah, it's crazy.
I thought I was the only weirdo doing.
Yeah, exactly. So I was eventually, after I did one van, I was working out pretty East Austin and building out in this couple's van in my aunt's place, and would just pack all my tools in their van whenever I was done, drive home. And then basically realized that I could fit most of the tools that I had then at the time in the bottom of their van, and thought, man, if I just bought my own van, I could just travel and build out people's vans on the road. And then that's what I did.
Right, okay.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
that's
like old school journeyman-esque.
Yeah. So
Nice.
I kind of did it in a weird. It probably would have been smart for me to like talk to some investor people and be like, I got an idea. But I was like, I'll just get a van and
Just gonna
go
and
travel and
Yeah.
build that van. So that's what I did. Did that for 2 or 3 years.
That must have been incredible. Just traveling around the country building out vans.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was really crazy. There's a lot of weird stories I could tell you about that. Basically just like living with people, if I came to y'all, I'd just be like, well, I'm going to live in your driveway and work on this and basically live with y'all till it's done.
Wow. That's really unusual.
Very strange.
Yeah.
That's nuts. But it must have massively increased your customer base. Well, over and above the fact, like, life experience, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But, like, massively increased your customer base because you could just go to anywhere at that point.
And that was the idea. That was like, I mean, I didn't really have a lot of experience for one doing this, and didn't have like money or confidence to get a shop. So if anyone was down, I'd be like, okay, I'll come to you. You can't like make it as hard for them to say no as possible.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you don't have that much money? Okay, I'll do it. I'll just, we'll figure it out.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
So how many vans did you end up doing on the road like that?
Probably like 20.
Wow.
So yeah, and there was a couple like truck bed build outs and other like SUVs and stuff like that mixed in. Bam.
And how were people finding you to do this?
All through Instagram. I mean, back then, I feel like it's changed a lot now, but back then there was a lot of those like van accounts that were just starting, and a lot of people had a lot more interest in those like random accounts to follow to just get ideas.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of people post that original Volkswagen van and was able to grow like a, following on Instagram pretty quickly, which was nice.
Yeah.
To have people easily know who I was.
And was it all self-taught?
Yeah.
Everything that you've done?
Yeah, I'm a terrible like tutorial or instruction reader. If you want me to do something, I'd rather have all the pieces and try it
Work it
a
out,
couple times, and then I can read some instructions or watch a tutorial on it and be like, okay, that's what I did wrong. Now I know, because I feel like most people can do anything. They don't make things that hard in the world.
No.
You could probably figure it out. You might do it a little bit wrong, but you can generally get there and then figure out your mistakes.
Yeah, it's a pretty good attitude to have. Ultimately, a big problem is just lots of little problems stacked on top of each other, isn't it? And you just keep chipping away at them.
Yeah, exactly.
You just keep chipping away at them. So you were travelling literally the length and breadth of the United States building vans. So the customer how did it all work? Customer would buy the van and material. Yeah. How explain that one? Yeah,
so basically people would buy their vans, and some people, a lot of the times people, even still now, people will start them and then be like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I would just come and help, and then every time we went to Home Depot, I'd just go with them and be like, this is what we need to buy, and they'd buy it. And it was pretty weird. It was basically like I was just...
Personal shopper in Home Depot.
Yeah, exactly. Because, I've always had a problem with it. Back then it was even worse. It's still kind of bad now, about just like asking people for money.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, I think this will be what we need for this. Like, can you afford it? Tell me if not. We'll figure,
It's hard that the way. It's like, I think all makers do struggle with it to some degree. It's definitely getting better now that people are, and we're certainly noticing people in the US are treating making as a business as well. But asking people for money is difficult.
Yeah.
But you need to
having
just
that
be
confidence about your work to be like, no, this makes sense. Like, I feel good charging you this. It's always very difficult.
Was there a notable turning point where you started to feel confident in charging people, and what was it?
There was this van I did for a guy. His name's Ryan. His Instagram was like Reform Life. He's a good friend. But he wanted me to build a van, and he was a little bit more like, had like a vision for it than other people. They were more like, just help me put a bed in here and maybe an AC, and then we can make it work. So he had more of a vision, and so I had to work a little harder and figured out materials that I like to use more. Kind of got my first style from that van that is still in all these vans now. That was when I felt like, okay, like this is good.
Right.
I feel good.
So a lot of the vans before were just making something work.
Yeah, just figuring out what the heck I was doing.
Right. And how long ago was Ryan's van? Or how long into your journey was Ryan's van?
That was probably like the third year of doing it. I believe, it's all
the years just flying.
Driving different places, because that one was in Austin that I did at a friend. That was the other thing. Some of them I'd do it when I was still living here, and people would be like, I can just drive to you. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. But they would find like a friend's driveway and be like, hey, can I build a van in your driveway?
Your friends must have been super supportive of it,
sounds
though.
like they're
Yeah, they were. It's funny to think, because I always felt like I was a nuisance because I'd be living outside of their house and then asking them to build in their driveway. And now looking back, I'm like, wow, that was really nice of them.
Yeah.
Is all your friend group sort of maker-esque as well, or are they totally different?
A couple of them, but not the majority, for sure.
Right. But they were obviously super open and super supportive of you doing it. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think the majority of my friends have like that, like entrepreneur
Yeah, okay.
desire in them, so they see that. They might not be like making something like physical per se, but
they see you building your own life based on your skills.
You're like, that's cool.
yeah,
That's cool, and that's really cool that they would support that.
yeah. I would say that. Yeah, lucky enough to have a pretty huge friend group, and they're all very supportive of everyone who
That's cool.
does whatever they do.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. And really important as well.
Oh, yeah.
So,
it wouldn't work without all them, that's for sure.
No, I can't
We
imagine.
would not be talking without these friends.
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And obviously thanks to whoever those friends are.
Yeah.
So Ryan's van was the third van. He said you'd done about 20 odd vans on the road. Mm-hmm. How many vans a year were you doing? Because it's a lot of travel in between as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it was really different every year. And there was also a lot of times where I would, do decent on the road and then come back to hang out with people in Austin and be like, I'm not going to do anything for 2 months and just
Nice.
hang out.
Nice.
Which is probably a bad business move, but
Yeah, but
got
you've
to
got live your
enjoy
life.
the
This is
years,
true.
so that
This
was
is true.
nice.
That's cool.
But yeah, so pretty up and down depending on when it was.
Yeah. And then what point did it really start becoming a thing? Because you got quite a lot of notoriety through, was it Magnolia Network? We don't have it back home, so we hadn't seen it, but we'd watched it the other night, or watched a clip of it. And then how did that all come about? Like a TV show. So for people listening back home in the UK, Magnolia Network's like a big sort of craft network, isn't it? Like a maker's craft
Yeah,
network.
it's almost like I don't know, maybe like a better HGTV. Just like they played off a lot of things that HGTV did. And then,
We don't have HGTV either.
yeah, Home and Garden TV, I think is what it
Right,
is.
okay.
But there's no garden on it, I don't think.
Right.
But so they kind of played with the things that they did well, and they kind of made it more like hip, I would
Right.
say. But Chip and Joanna Gaines, if y'all
Yeah.
are familiar
We've
with
heard their name a few times, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I got started from them. They have the business Magnolia. And anyway, I don't know much about that whole side of the story. But for me, it was going back to another friend who I'd lived with for a long time. And he had always talked about, like, man, I'll make it. He's an RTF major, radio,
Right.
TV, something like that. But he was like, oh, we should make a TV show about this. Like, yeah, okay, whatever. That sounds funny. And then one day he called me and was like, what are you doing right now? I was like, oh, building the van in Austin for some people. And he was like, well, I pitched this idea to like Magnolia. It was like right when it was starting. It's like, can I come film you? It's like, yeah, sure. So then 2 days later, he had flew in from LA with this like smaller production crew at the time. And they just filmed me working, did this like sizzle, and it was pretty weird. And I was like, yeah, we're sending this to this network that's starting out, Chip and Joe. And I was like, oh, pretty cool, we'll see. But didn't really think about it at all. And they sent it in, and then it got approved very quickly.
Oh, wow.
Really?
He was like, yeah, we're talking with them right now, or like here in a few minutes, and we'll let you know. Like these things kind of work pretty slowly, but yeah, we'll let you know what they say. And he called me like 5 minutes later, and he's like, well, we're in. We're gonna do this.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and I was on tour with a friend's band as like the tour manager, and was like, oh, I guess this is like my last like
Tour.
chilling out with
Yeah,
y'all.
yeah, yeah.
Like, we're gonna get to work, I guess, when I get home to. And I didn't have a shop at the time either. I was
Right.
doing it on the road still, and yeah, so got home and got a shop and made a sign, tried to make it a little more legit.
That sounds like it might have been a bit of a double-edged sword from you are just enjoying being chilled out and doing it your way to now you need a shop, you need that, but there's also the notoriety of a TV programme. How did you get all that in place? What do you think? Was it a double-edged sword or was it?
Yeah, I mean, yes, and I could go down the whole thing of like, yeah, it was a lot easier back then. I didn't have the shop and employees to take care of and all this.
Yeah.
But it was like the thing to push me to be like, you can do this. You know, you can do a little bit more, you know, try a little harder.
Right.
So that was a good push. But yeah, I didn't have a shop or anything. And so the only reason I keep this thing going is because that started it all.
Wow.
To have
And they're
the
still
shop.
doing it. They're still doing the
Yeah.
TV series, yeah?
We're waiting to hear. So, yeah.
So how many episodes did you do of that?
We did 2 seasons. I
Two
think
seasons.
16 episodes.
That's
I
a
wanna
lot.
say. I think it was 8 and 8, something like that.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah.
That's quite a fair chunk from someone who was making vans out of
Yeah.
someone's driveway, someone being insert name here because you don't know where you would be around the world at the time,
Yeah.
to all of a sudden there's a TV program there.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how did it all work when they came to video from you? Because I think that would be quite, I don't know, my heart says it would maybe take the fun out of doing it. Was it a good experience all round?
Like the whole show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it was really good. I mean, first season, there was a lot of things to figure out, especially, it's like anything. If a lot of people look at these on Instagram or something and they're like, oh, I can do that. It doesn't seem like that much work because it's in a little van,
Yeah.
but there's quite a work to do.
Yeah.
And so that was, the first season was like figuring out how to shoot it and like time frames. And the other thing that's difficult is like you can't find people like normal trades that are like, oh yeah, I want to do this. Cabinet makers are like, you're making like a 5-foot cabinet typically at the biggest. We're not going to help you make that cabinet. It's not money for us. They want to do a whole house.
Yeah.
So it's hard to like find help. So figuring that out time-wise and everything was a challenge. But then really when we figured that out, it was a lot of fun. A lot of work. We would do them, I think the first season was 8 vans in
Wow.
6 or 7 weeks or something like that.
Wow.
It was
That's
pretty nuts.
loads.
Yeah. So the cool thing there was I got to hire one of my best friends who had helped me on the first van, and it was pretty weird. He was living in around Houston as a teacher, and I called him when the show kind of was starting to happen. It's like, hey, you want to come do this? And he was like, yeah. Kind of wanted to quit teaching anyways.
Oh, wow.
So he quit teaching and moved back to Austin, and
That's nuts.
yeah. So we worked on all those vans together, and that was a blast. It's kind of one of those things. During it, if you ask me, I'd be like, "This is too crazy." Like
Yeah,
I'm
we're
so
doing it
tired.
again.
But then now looking back, it was a blast.
So you'd welcome the call if it came again to do another one.
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah. If you're watching,
Yeah, if you're watching, if you're
What an
watching form. That's nuts. That seemed like opportunities like that don't come around often.
No.
yeah. And I used to watch like Pimp My Ride back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
And
I remember that one.
just like, man, that's so. There's a lot of terrible things about that TV show
Yeah.
that have come out now. But looking at that, I was like, man, that's so cool. This guy just like started making crazy cars, and he's got a show. And then my dad got to meet that guy, Ryan something, and was like, that's so crazy. You got to meet that guy. And then
What was his
Like,
name?
you wanna-
Ryan? Was it Ryan Seacrest?
that was the American Idol guy.
Was it right? Okay.
Yeah, it was like he has like a hard to say like German last name
Oh, okay.
that you can never remember. But just like as a kid, being like, oh, that's so crazy, and then someone pretty early on in my life was like, you want a show? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not gonna say no. I never like really wanted to be on a TV show, but the idea just seems so crazy.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, try it out, see what
That's
it's like.
bananas.
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
And that was all because the right person at the right time who you knew wanted to pitch it.
Yeah, and there was like there's like a chain of the like where he was friends with someone that he had made a couple like short films with, and then that guy was friends with the guy wwho owned this production company.
It's all
So
about
he
who you
asked
know.
him. That guy asked my friend, and he was like, "Do you have any ideas for a show?" And he's like, "I got one," and it worked.
That's bananas.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And then 2 seasons later,
Yeah,
you're totally like nonchalant about it.
I
as well.
know,
Like, yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty crazy. I'm like, do you understand that is absolutely bonkers?
I know that's the problem that I have is that I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Pretty.
I don't know if it's a problem. I think it's actually quite cool that it's just like,
Yeah, I just
oh.
think that anyone can do anything. So,
Yeah.
like, you should just look at those things as inspiring and not like, man, that's cool he did it, but that'll never be me. It's like, I
Yeah,
didn't
no,
think
that-
I'd ever do a
yeah.
thing in my life. I didn't go to college and then really, I was working at a burger stand for a long time. It's like, yeah. Then it worked somehow.
And then somehow
Just
it
got
all
tried a
works.
little bit, you know. I put a little effort and
Yeah.
something came out of it. So
Yeah. Good
So
for you.
out with the mental frantic 6 to 8 weeks, 8 vans of filming, what does your normal work look like with vans? Is it customers are bringing them to you now, aren't they?
yeah, we're trying to get to a point where we'll make our own vans. But yeah, it's been a little easier just for people to buy their vans and bring them here, and a little less overhead for us. But
So when you say bring their vans, but build your own van, when you mentioned you want to get to a point, build your own vans, it'd be you buying the van, fitting out exactly as you want it, and then selling it off thereafter. Right. And do you still dabble with the rental of the vans? Because it seems like that'd be a good second income.
yeah, we're trying to get into that. It's kind of one of those things, like if we build a van, like our first one, should we just rent it? Should we sell it? Yeah, there's all pretty tight margins in all of these things, so it's pretty tough to figure out the best move. But yeah.
And how do you manage all those tight margins? Because it feels like you're not just doing the Fords, you do all sorts of different vans. You know, Jack Cole that we spoke to back home, he's kind of found his place in the Eurobox, which that body's the same on your Dodge, whatever it is, the Citroen, Peugeot.
ProMaster.
That's it. So that body seems really the same. It's the same body across a bunch of vans, which does make it easier.
Yeah, and that's nice too out there, because we only have the ProMaster.
Right.
That's it. But it seems like there's Fiat, Citroen versions
Yeah,
of them all.
there's 4, maybe 5 vans that all share the same.
That's wild.
Maybe 5.
Yeah, we
And
used
then
to
the
have that
Crafter
with
and the
Sprinter.
Sprinter. Crafter and the Volkswagen Crafter and the Sprinter are the same.
Oh yeah,
van
they
now
have that one too. We used to have that as we used to have Dodge Sprinters, and then Freightliner Sprinters,
Right.
and then now it's just Sprinter.
We've
Or
also
just
got
Mercedes.
we've also got MAN. Have you got them over here? Like the truck company, MAN.
Yeah.
They do a van back home, which is a Sprinter as well. So there's actually like,
Yeah, you got more vans than we do.
oh man, we're
moving to Scotland.
Van daft. But I'll tell you what, I'll swap you. But we don't have pickups like you do. Not nearly like.
I can't get over the size of pickups and trucks here. It just blows my mind.
What's your dad got? A Navara? So like a Navara, so like a Hilux size, that is like a big truck back
like
home.
a Tacoma, basically. That we
Yeah. So that's a big truck back home, and you see them here, and you're like, look at that little truck.
It's tiny.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. So I suppose that's one thing as well with the American side of it. The size of the vans, that must really help from a fit out point of view.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of. I mean, I've done a lot of the small ones, which I think are really cool in certain ways. I think if I got a van again, it'd be the shorter Sprinter. Try and get a 4x4, because the space is really nice, but I don't know. You can pull everything off in a smaller one, I think.
You think in a smaller one you can pull off a full van for yourself or for
for sure. Yeah,
you and a partner?
it depends on what you are looking for, how much stuff you want to get rid of.
Yeah. How much do you want to reduce your life by?
Yeah.
That's wicked. So your work van, going back to when you were originally doing it out with the show and out with a workshop, and you were kind of travelling around, you were living in that work van as well?
Yeah.
So what did the build out look like in that? Something that's half workshop, half
It was pretty typical to like a lot of the van, raised bed in the back and cabinets, closet on the driver's side. And then just try and stuff every tool underneath.
Any space you find, tools.
Yeah, that's wild. So do you need a lot of tools and was it a big setup cost to get into it?
I didn't have I had a lot of tools to travel with, but really nothing compared to what I have now.
Right.
But yeah, you don't need a whole lot. I didn't have anything that cut a straight line for a long time.
Really?
Yeah, till I got to shop, then I got like a table saw and track saw and things like that.
So what were you doing before? Just rigging out on a jigsaw?
Doing a lot of skill saws, and
Yeah.
got a pretty steady hand now, so I can cut a pretty good straight line.
I can imagine.
That's absolutely nuts.
And the other thing is there's a few times you need straight lines, but a lot of it, nothing's straight in these things, so
Yeah.
figure it out.
That's wild, man. Is it difficult in the US with regards to, like, we've got a lot of legislations and stuff like that, and yeah, most of us fly under the radar and don't. Is it the same here?
Pretty much. I mean, having the business is funny. Like, it was really hard to get insurance, which we're basically, the category we are under is, what is it? Automotive upholstery. So.
Right.
There you go. That's what we do, automotive upholstery.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know how to sew, but that's, I guess, what I do.
Really? And what about, like, so for example, back home we need to put gas in, like if we use gas and propane and we need to go and get that certified, do you have to do all that here as well, or?
Yeah, if you want to get them, like, certified as RVs, you have to do a lot of that. A lot of people, it depends on the customer, like, are you down to kind of just be a under the radar kind of person, or
an Amazon van that you happen to live in.
Yeah. So it kind of just depends, really. Right. But a lot of people are usually under the radar people.
Yeah, there's a certain type of people that this attracts, isn't it? That just, they don't want to pay the rents, they don't want to pay the mortgages.
Yeah.
They just want to fly under the radar and live their happy life. And there must be a nice clientele to work with as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the hardest thing is that most people who want to live in their cars don't have a lot of money to spend.
Right.
So that's the other, like, margin thing is my biggest thing is I just want people to do this, to do whatever, because I think it's a great thing to learn about yourself living in a car. You can learn a lot pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just want to figure it out for people. You know, if they only have X amount of money, I want to see what we can do for X amount of money.
Right, so you try and work with them on that basis. That's cool.
Which is probably a terrible business idea.
Yeah.
You know,
but
Jeff
it's
Bezos
not all about making...
scolding me right now.
Yeah, it's not all about making the most money, is it?
Yeah.
So,
No, not at all. Not for me.
Yeah, and what about, you talk about the people not having a lot of money and stuff to do it. Do you ever, like, hold classes? Do you ever help people finish their builds? That must be a big thing. People that start the build thinking the best, and then it's like, oh, this just got really hard really quick.
Yeah. I've thought about doing that. I mean, I need to fix up this trailer Airbnb in my backyard. So I've thought about being like, does anyone want to just learn how to do this and help me for free?
Yeah.
Okay.
But a lot of the things is, it's, if you want it done in a certain time frame, then you should probably just leave it to us to do. Yeah. But I mean, before I even started doing this, my original idea was getting a warehouse with a ton of tools, and people bring their vans and they work on them, and we have, like, plumber that you can, like, rent his time for a couple hours that day to help with the plumbing part, cabinet maker to help with that.
I like that idea.
Yeah, it kind of priced it out a little bit on how much it would cost, and
I was thinking that would be.
Sent it to my friends, and they were like, "No one has this much money yet." It's like, okay, well, think about it. Yeah, and then the insurance would probably be insane on that. Having a bunch of people who don't know how to use tools and be like, "Try out the table saw."
Yeah, but it is something you would still entertain if the opportunity came up. I think that'd be quite a cool setup.
It would be quite cool.
I mean, I have so many friends. Sorry if they're gonna watch this, but they don't really know how to make anything. Yeah, and like I was saying, a lot of things are not that hard. You just have, I mean, it won't be perfect, but if you make it, it's better than perfect, So it's better just want to teach them a little thing. Be like, oh, you just cut it like that. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can finish this thing I was dreaming of.
It's just a simple little thing just to learn. Yeah,
you just got to learn, like, oh, you should use this tool. And like, oh, cool. Didn't know. I thought I was,
Yeah. What about like the maker spaces that were in with Alicia yesterday, the one in Waco, like Maker's Edge, and there's loads of them, there's hundreds of them, that's just the most recent one we've been into.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to speak to one of them to see how they manage it all.
Yeah.
Because they must have it all down to, there's loads of them, so there must be specialist insurance for that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always had that idea of, like, to reach out and figure out how they do it. But I got to get these vans done. So figuring out my free time is pretty tough.
Yeah. Well, does your free time just look non-existent at the moment? What are the van orders like?
Yeah, the free time is pretty rough right now. We just hired a couple new people and trying to make it more of a normal experience. I mean, you saw Whit was here working on a Sunday.
Yeah. So
we pretty much work all the time.
Yeah. What's your work-life balance like?
pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All work and no play.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was telling my friend the other day. Like, I need to figure out how to use my free time. So then, because most, like, if you're like, oh, can you build this for me? I'm like, yeah, I got all the time in the world. Which is not the way I should be thinking. I should be like, okay, I have to do these things every day for myself.
Yeah.
So, no, I can't do it in that amount of time, kind of a thing.
Right.
But whenever you're like, oh, I really want this, I'm like, yeah, I can do it. Just don't think about myself at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
It is a nice way to be, that you're selfless in that respect, but you do need to watch that.
Yeah.
Like, you need to say no to people. I mean, we've been the same. Everyone I speak to has fallen foul of it at some point.
You're bad for it, saying, yeah, I'll help you,
Oh,
and
man,
then
I'm
forgetting
terrible for
actually, oh, I'm not taking any time for myself this
I'm
week.
terrible for it. Like,
Yeah.
when Bosco was doing his house and stuff like that, and
Your friend,
yeah, he was great, because I'd always say, yeah, I'll help you, and he's like, oh, I could do a hand of this. I'm like, I'm literally free between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And he was always great, because he could read between the lines and realise that, actually, no, you're not free, Jack. If your time is when you should be getting ready for life and having breakfast, if that's the time you can give me, I maybe just won't ask for it. So I've been very lucky in that my friends back home have realised that maybe I don't have as much time as I say, and that's been cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's definitely been worth it.
Yeah. That was like the first season. Me and my buddy Matt were doing, at least 16 hours a day.
Wow.
And so my joke would always be that my weekends are like start at 9, and then it would be like, okay, 9 is Friday evening, 12 is Saturday.
Yeah.
2 o'clock is Sunday.
Yeah.
And then we'll wake up at 7. That's Monday morning.
Yeah.
So that's pretty terrible.
Yeah, that's not the greatest.
That got better
of
in
all.
season 2 because we hired some more people. But
Right.
that first season was, and I was living at the shop in my van, so I'd like just be like, oh, I can keep working till 8 or 9, and then just
Leave no detachment from it.
get in the van, stay up late because trying to enjoy some part, probably watch YouTube videos too long or something.
Yeah.
You're like, I just can't go to sleep yet. I didn't do anything for myself today.
Yeah, you're
And
trying
I
to
wake up
fill
early.
space.
Yeah.
Fill space that's not there, but just doing something for
Yeah.
yourself. So what is your, I mean, Kate obviously asked your work-life balance, but you're not living on site anymore, are you?
No.
No.
Yeah. After that first season, I like stopped probably like at the last episode that we were filming, because I was like, this is terrible for me.
Right.
I got to get away from this place. Just even that fact of being like, okay, I'm leaving at 6. So I'm doing everything I can before 6. And I don't have that thing. It's like, oh, I'll just do that later after you guys leave. And then either would do it and stay up working too late on it, or just be like, I'm too tired, not do it, and kind of screw up the like, oh, I thought you were going to get that done whenever I left.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. So then I was like, I got to get away from this place and have
Have a separate.
my own, time.
So you've got your own, you've got your own life back now.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a weird circle to go around, considering that you wanted to live in a van, so you had more time for yourself and do your own thing, and then all of a sudden it's that actually doing that van thing's meant you never had any time.
Yeah,
for
that's
yourself.
always the funny when I meet people and they're like, well, you've probably traveled all over. Like, what's the coolest place you've been? I'm like, I did travel, but I worked the entire
Your
time.
time.
Yeah.
Never got to explore really.
Yeah. No, I get that. And what about like future orders and stuff now? Have you got a pretty full book for a prolonged period of time now, or?
Yeah, we've got the next couple months. We kind of do it in like little batches,
Right.
kind of. Mainly because we have a small team, so it's like we'll try and book, 3-4 vans, and then not book anything, and then close to the end of those, like second or third and fourth, then start booking again.
Okay.
It's good not to overwhelm yourself with too many.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than having 3-4 years worth of order books and
Yeah,
things
that was
changing.
like
and-
the show, like the first, second van we'd finish and wrap that episode, and then be like, all right, the other ones are waiting. Like, we have a party for one night of like, we did it.
Yeah.
Back on to the next one.
All right, let's start again tomorrow morning.
Oh man,
So,
there's like a little bit of false hope at the end of the tunnel, isn't it?
I mean, there's fewer things that are more exciting than finishing one of those seasons. Not that they were like a terrible thing, but it just like being like, wow, we did it.
Yeah.
Woo! That was awesome.
Now you can get back to the other customers.
Yeah.
So did the TV company bring vans, or was it customers' vans you were doing in that time?
They would do like a casting call as well as like my own customers. So it'd be like a little mixture of both.
Right.
Okay.
And their casting call would be reaching out to people that maybe want a van as well.
Yeah.
Right, nice. So
Yeah.
you had you didn't have to try and fill your books for that as well. That's a bit
But the
less
first
stress.
time they did put my name on it, which was pretty funny, because then people would reach out to me personally on my personal Instagram. So then I
Oh,
went
really?
like changed my name and went away from that. So that was
Really?
pretty funny. Yeah.
So when they explain that again, when they put the casting call out, it had your own personal name on it.
Yeah, they were like, "Do you want Brett Lewis?" And so they would reach out and then wouldn't hear anything for a little bit because they're, busy figuring out who they're going to talk to. And then they would be like, "Hey, I sent this thing in." And I was like, "Who are you?" And I didn't even know that they posted this thing. I was like, "How are
really?
people finding me?" So
That's
that was
wild.
weird. Yeah.
And did all those customers come through in the end? Like even the ones that weren't on the show, did they come through to order vans eventually? Or do you think
Some
a lot
of them,
it was-
a lot of it is like another difficult thing with the way that I do it is like with people's vans that like you buy a van, you hit me up and I'm like, all right, well, we can start in 2 months. And you're like, well, I want to get on the road.
Yeah.
So then you find someone else. Everyone really wants to do it really fast.
Right.
Everybody
they
wants
buy their
things
own.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
So the advice
I mean, a
would
lot of
be,
people plan trips before their van's even done
oh, really?
working because I'm trying to be nice to be like, we'll get it done.
Yeah.
And then I stay up super late and try and get it
Yeah,
done.
but they get their trip out of it, don't they?
Yeah.
So the advice seems to be that like contact someone like you before you've even ordered your van. Like get in contact with you.
Yeah,
As
I
soon as
always
the van
recommend
turns
that
up.
because, again, like people don't realize how much these things can cost. Even if you do it yourself, you're gonna put in. I mean, some other people would argue because you don't really need every bell and whistle in here, but if you really want it to be comfortable for a long amount of time and last, you're
They're
gonna
not
put in
cheap.
at least 15, 20,000 in material.
Wow.
And some people don't think that, and they just go buy a $60,000 van, and they're like, "Wait, there's more? I have to
Yeah.
pay more."
Yeah.
So yeah, contacting before is always a good thing, so that we can really figure out what your budget is and what van you should be looking for, used or not used.
Yeah, well, you've got an immense experience in vans, so it would make sense for you to almost broker the deal for the van and
Yeah.
Some
try and
advice,
find
yeah.
people. And then ultimately you're going to end up with not only a good name for being able to get it, but you're going to end up with a van that you want to work on.
Yeah,
You must have had some absolute, excuse my language, you might have had some absolute rotters come through the door for work.
yeah, I've had some pretty rough ones. I mean, not as much lately.
Yeah.
Mainly, I think because vans are hard to find right now, so a lot of them are brand new, like this one.
Right, okay.
Nice.
Yeah, that's nice. There's a lot of money to go in though, isn't it? Like brand new van and then brand new. Like if you were trying to do that yourself, buying a brand new van and then a full fit out, it's a lot of dough to
Yeah.
then pivot on. Will it
Yeah,
sell?
if you're buying a new van and you're doing it yourself, you're still probably going to get close to 100,000.
Well,
Mad.
Yeah, I mean maybe 80 depending on the van, but you'll be in that. Yeah,
yeah.
Vans at home are expensive at the minute. Vans at home are expensive.
Vans at home are wild money.
I mean I bought my first van 7-8 years ago for 18,000 Sprinter van with 80,000 miles, and now that 80,000 mile Sprinter would probably be like 40,000 or something. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say how much vans really cost because it just depends on who's selling them and how
And what they want, what someone's willing to pay.
how much they think that they could sell it for, and sometimes you might see that's the only van for sale in my area, so I guess that's the cost.
Yeah.
So it's really hard.
So what's the cheapest versus most expensive fit out you've done? Where does it start? What's the base level that you're happy putting out?
Like cost of it.
Yeah.
We can do some pretty cool things for around like 45
Right.
material and labor all in. But That's not. I mean, it's not the greatest van. We'll try and make everything look as cool as possible because that's our biggest thing. Is we want to be proud of it more than you're happy with it. We want to be like, this is awesome, and then hopefully you love it. But we know it's awesome.
Yeah,
that's like me and Whit. We feel more like artists in that way of like we just want to do something beautiful and different than anything else, and
stand out.
Yeah, because we don't want to make vans that have coin floor and like the rubber floor stuff that some people put in and like upholstered walls. We want to make it like
look like a little cabin inside.
Yeah, just like something that would inspire you to be inside of it.
Yeah.
And want to spend time in it.
Exactly, yeah. And that was like from the first van I ever did. And I haven't got it in a while. But people would be like, do you like that's so much weight in there and stuff. And it's like, well, it looks really pretty. So these vans are like they can drive. I mean, my van was full of all those tools, had a whole full build out, and I was still getting like 22 miles per gallon in it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's like
that's pretty good. That Ford that we rented off Enterprise is doing like 27, 28 to the gallon over here. So to do a fully loaded van, that's
and that's good. More with like diesels.
Yes,
this one is going to be closer to like 16 miles per gallon probably. But yeah, these things are meant to carry stuff.
Yeah.
And like I don't want to live in if I'm already living in a car, I don't want it to feel like a car. I want it to feel like a home.
Yeah.
Even if I pay a little more at the pump, I'm not paying more for rent in an apartment that doesn't feel like home.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah.
And I take it your customers are on board with that as well. The guys that come to you, they must be wanting your designs and your work.
Generally, some people ask for things that we don't do, and I'm like, why did you look at the website? Right. We don't build things like that.
And do you just turn them down? You're just not interested in doing them?
No, I mean, I'm always trying to make it work for sure.
Of course.
But if it's just not our style, then I'm like, we're going to be doing something completely new for us on your van, which I don't think is a good idea. Yeah. I don't want you to be unhappy with this.
And if they're happy at that point and they agree with it, then it's kind of on them, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. I think that's a fair way to work. And what about the most expensive end? What's the biggest van you've ever done or most expensive van?
I mean, we've gotten definitely into the 100,000s before.
Really?
And that's usually with like solar setups and things like that.
Okay.
That's like the biggest thing.
So it's not so much the artistic license, it's when you start doing the expensive lecky setups and...
Yeah.
And they'd be like full-time off-grid vans for people.
Yeah. Like if we've done them where we've had ACs that can run for 24 hours plus and you're paying for it.
Yeah,
you better be turning that AC on and enjoying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AC and vans, that's bananas, isn't it?
Yeah, that was like the biggest thing when I started, that there was like hardly any options. It was the typical like Dometic AC on top. But now they have 12-volt ACs that can really run for a long period of time. Still got to spend that money on the batteries, but, they work, which is crazy. I never saw that coming.
Yeah, the industry surrounding it must be quite good that the industry surrounding it's just got so popular for you. That must make it easy.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cool smaller companies coming out with really interesting like fixes that like the larger companies could kind of like miss. Like for instance, swivel seats. If you put a swivel seat on, they're usually raised at like 1.5 inches, the seat, which you definitely feel driving an 1.5 inches. And there's a new company out of Colorado that made one that only raises it 1/2 inch. So
nice.
That's pretty cool. There's like a lot, and there's just been a lot of innovation for like little things.
Yeah, all those little things do make a difference though, especially just to go back to the pure size of America. Like if you're doing 800,000, 900,000, 2,000, 3,500 miles. What is it? From New York to California is like 3,500 miles or something like that.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
If you're doing a journey like that, you're going to notice all those little things. And you're going to notice this feels like it drives rubbish now and all those.
Yeah, and the farther you get from home, the more you recognize.
Yeah, I'll bet.
This isn't as comfy as I thought.
Yeah, that's wicked, man. So you're in this shop now. It's always only one van at a time you're building?
No, we've done... I think the most we've done at one time is 4.
Oh, wow, okay.
That must in this shop?
In our previous shop. We had a bigger shop downtown, but Austin likes to kick out all the small businesses.
Oh, that's a shame.
Oh,
Their
no.
rent. So
Someone did say that.
Someone, yeah, I've heard a few times that Austin's getting busy. So, so 4 vans at one time. Were they 4 of the same vans?
at that time, I think we had 2 when we were doing 4. At that specific time was 2 ProMasters and 2 Transits.
All for different customers? Mm-hmm. Right. Do you get customers that want to, like with the popularity of this sort of Airbnb van outdoorsy model, do you get customers that are just like, do me 4 vans, the same?
No. That would be cool though.
That would
Yeah,
be
it
cool.
would be cool.
Yeah.
Feels like it'd be cool, and it would also be quite efficient.
Yeah.
If it's like, I want 4 of these ProMasters done exactly the same.
Yeah. And that's what we're, I mean, it's hard for me because that's the easiest way to do things is to pick the same van or if anything, the same layout and always do that. But I don't want to make my job
Not be
boring.
creative then.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of just the same old.
Yeah. Like we did a bus recently. And that was like really brought me back to the excitement of like what is possible to do.
And why the bus? Who was the bus for? Just
It was for this guy James Conrad. He's one of the best frisbee golf players in the world.
oh, nice.
And he like randomly came by. All these frisbee golf people live in their vans, so at our old shop they came by just to say hi, and I don't really know why. But basically he wanted to get a bus and called me a couple of months ago, and we did his bus. And normally I wouldn't do a bus, but it sounded like a good idea. And it was. So.
Was it like an old school bus style thing?
It was a shuttle bus from like an airport.
Okay.
Ah, okay. Like the it's like an F350, F650 front, and then it's got a
650,
big box on the back.
Yeah.
Ah, that feels like that would be quite a good build because they're square.
Yeah, it was a little more square for sure. It was
Yeah.
a lot better than a school bus too, for like the height of it. Like a lot of school buses slope down so much. So when you get like walk to the side of it, you can't really stand anymore. So this thing is pretty tall all the way around. I mean, tall enough for me to stand at any point of it. So
That's good.
it was
That's
really
a
cool.
That sounds like it would actually be quite a good build out.
Yeah, it was
nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
So more of them, please, if anyone's listening with a 650X airport shuttle bus, you would like to do them.
I mean, yeah, that's what we kept saying. Like, man, where do you get more of these? This
Yeah.
is the way to go. I don't know if I like driving it around, but
Yeah,
it was really cool to build in.
I'll bet. And what about like kits? You see, we certainly see it back home. You know, a lot of the guys that build specifically transporters back home, the Volkswagen transporters, which I've not seen many of here.
No.
But they're like a cult classic back home, from the old ones to the new ones. And there's loads of people that have built them and then turned the builds into kits. You know, like CNC kits. Have you ever thought about doing that, or have you ever used any of those kits?
Yeah, we haven't ever used the kits. We've done some CNCing things, but like a lot. It could be a lot of like the beginning part of the build, like walls and things like that. We can CNC, but since we do so much custom stuff, it's just all different.
But what about you producing like a Chewy Design Co kit for someone?
Yeah, we've got it. One of the guys who used to work for me, a good friend, he was really into that. And the problem was we were doing the show at the same time, and it was like managing what we can do.
Yeah, it feels like it'd be a good way to leverage your following into something like that, though.
Yeah.
You know, you could do something. You've obviously got the experience to do something real nice with it.
Yeah.
So that'd be cool. I'd like to see that. I think that'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, I'll send you the first model.
There you are.
Build out your van.
Yeah, for some van that's probably not available in the that's not available in the UK. So what's next? Well, you're obviously waiting to hear about the future show. Mm-hmm. If that's going ahead, that'll be season 3. Did you say? If it goes ahead, it'll be season 3. But what else have you got on the cards? What's next?
Trying to get this thing running really well, getting more employees in here, being able to do more standard builds with the custom like option as well, still not trying to leave that, and hopefully getting some rental vans. That'd be pretty sweet.
That would be cool.
So building out the business to sustain itself.
Yeah. Just somewhere, where it's like a good place for people to work and learn things and have fun.
How many employees do you have?
Just 2 right now.
Just two.
Just 2.
And you all just kind of do the same sort of roles?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's ridiculous how many things you got to learn.
Well, that's what I was
Doing
thinking.
this, you got to be a carpenter, a plumber, an electrician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, at the start you mentioned you can't really just get someone that does cabinets to come in and do it. And is it all guys that are just keen on making something that you're taking in from scratch?
Yeah, I think that's
Seems to be the best.
the best employer we can get is someone who is just like has the will to want to make things and can learn quickly. You don't have to know how to build cabinets to work here. We can teach you that. But if you're like interested,
Yeah.
That's always
That's
a key
good.
thing, yeah. It's
Yeah.
being interested
Just
in it.
be into it. Yeah.
yeah.
It's easy to learn.
And
that.
problem solving, there's a lot of little things that can happen in here, like, oh, can the seat turn around? Thinking forward of like, if I make this cabinet this big, can you
Problem
still
solving.
drive? You know, so just
Yeah.
thinking forwardly on all these things, there's a lot of that. If I build the wall like this, will I be able to attach things to it later? What's happening in this layout?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then right at the very, very start, you said that you don't know you'll be doing this forever.
Yeah.
Have you got any ideas of what you would be doing out with it? Because you're obviously a very capable guy.
Yeah, I don't know what it is that I want to do, but I would like to make like pretty crazy structures.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense, but like a pretty crazy like house or like be more on like the architectural side of.
Okay.
I got a lot of things going on in my head.
Take the wheels off and size vans up, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Feels like you could move into the tiny house space.
That's kind of how it all started. Was I was interested in tiny houses when they were first popping off, maybe like 10 years ago, and yeah, I wanted to really build a tiny house, and then was like, oh, the van already has walls. That seems a little easier. So,
Because they're just built on a trailer base, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then frame out a trailer base.
yeah, and honestly, I kind of just want to get away from the wheels on things. Would like to build more permanent structures, build like inspiring spaces, whether it's like a mixed campground use or
Yeah.
someone's like, I want to build an office on my land, and you could just build whatever you want and build something that's inspiring to be in. Is a big thing.
Have you thought about how you transition into that?
First, get people to keep making this business run so I can have a little more time
To think
to
about
figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you would keep, so it's important, like you would keep this running
Yeah.
regardless. Right, that's cool.
Yeah, I think it's a really fun thing. I think it's good for, to help people do this,
Yeah.
traveling in vans and things like that. But that I don't want to be 60 years old and still be like,
Hobbling about in a van trying to wire
what's your
stuff
layout
up.
design going to be? I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and that's fair. There's credit to that in itself.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Or furniture. I mean, furniture has always been a really
Yeah.
inspiring thing to me. Even that, y'all recently were hanging out with that guy who was making bowls.
Yeah, Christopher.
And there's another guy that the only other person that follows you that I follow, I think he lives in the UK, like Yosef, or he's a bowl turner. I can't remember. Or not Yosef. Starts with a Y, ends with an F. And he does a lot of like he makes a lot of his own lathes. And
Makes a lot of his own lathes.
Yeah. I can find him pretty easy.
Yeah, go and find him.
Because he's the only other, when I click on your thing, he's the only
The
other
only
person.
other friend in common, yeah.
Yeah. And I've followed this guy for like way before I started Vans.
Oh, interesting. I wonder who it is.
So it's interesting you say furniture and spaces though, isn't it? Because they both lend themselves perfectly to vans.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, this is the like cornerstone of all the things I want to do,
Right.
but not the end of it, for sure.
This is the start. Let's see if we can find this guy.
Let's see.
funny.
Oh yeah, not Yost. I was so wrong with that. But this guy.
Okay, yeah, his
Yeah,
stuff's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, he spins a lot of Windsor chair spindles and stuff like that as well. Yeah, he's wicked.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I found him a long time ago somehow. And it was just been like, man, I want to turn wood on a lathe.
Yeah, well, you...
Man, I
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I
that
took
guy's
a
Bolson,
real-
I almost bought one that y'all just recently talked to.
I took a real affinity to it straight away. I was just like, this is wicked. Because you're just turning a big old lump of wood into a nice
just
thing.
stabbing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And something
it's
beautiful comes
actually
out.
super simple, but also really easy to get wrong.
Yeah.
Like the first time you hit it with a tool and it hooks up on you and it nearly throws you
Yeah, you're
across the garage,
terrified.
you're like, whoa.
Looks hard to, you know.
It's harder
It's
than
harder
it
than it
looks,
looks,
but when
that's
you
the
get
one.
into a flow of it, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, this stuff's really nice.
I was
Yeah.
looking at lathes the other night actually. I think I might buy one when I go home.
Yeah.
Just as like a wee chill out lunchroom space, like
Yeah.
for half an hour, go and see if you can knock out a small bowl.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool. I think
Yeah.
it'd be real cool.
Yeah, I think just making anything, like the idea that you're like, oh man, I made this bowl and now I'm eating cereal out of it or something. You're like, that's pretty awesome.
That's what I find with ceramics as well. You're like making like a vessel. Like
That you can use.
was literally mud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I spun a thing.
And you said
And
a
a-
lump of wood that he
Aye.
had to turn it into a bowl.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
like ceramics was a lump of mud that I splatted on a spinning thing
Yeah.
and kind of like mushed it up with my hands.
Yeah.
And look, now I can drink out of it.
Yeah.
I think that's quite cool.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think about that stuff way too much where I'm like, yeah, you see all these plywood squares and then you see the van at the end, you're like, that was all made out of just like a bunch
Stuff.
of random squares. And we cut it up. And now you can live in here. Like,
Yeah.
That's wild.
And
yeah.
and then even more than that, I'm like, I drove all the stuff that's in that van in my truck here, and now it's like this place where someone will live in. That's just so crazy. It's so cool just making things like that.
Making things is wicked.
That's the beauty of
I wish
just
everyone had
handmade.
a chance to do more of it.
Yeah, it's
Just
so
make
cool.
something.
Yeah, that's the majority of things thing I tell people is like, oh, I don't know how to do, like, I don't know how to make a dining room table. I'm like, yeah, just try. And then, like, when you eat at it, you'll be like, I made this. And it's not, it's not a $10,000 table, but you made it and now you're eating on it. It's pretty cool.
We done that with our first flat down south, didn't we? When you moved down, you still had the CNC machine for your old business set up the road.
Made your own dining
We
table.
ordered a couple of sheets of ply, drove up the road because we were going up the road for the weekend anyway. Dining table, 2 benches, came back down, clicked it all together. And I was like,
There we
and that
go.
was our dining table for like 2 years.
Yeah.
It was wicked. And then it was, in fact, more than that, because I think it went to the next house with us as well. And then
Yeah.
I think it got gifted to somebody. It got gifted to somebody, or I can't remember, so it's probably still in circulation somewhere.
Yeah.
And it was like, I think it was all out of one sheet of plywood. And it was like
That
a
was your
nice-
challenge. to
That
get
was
it
it,
all in
one sheet of
shape.
plywood, a nice, I think you're right, that was the challenge, to do it at one sheet. And it was wicked. I loved it.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, the first table I ever made, it was during like COVID and wasn't working on any vans at the time. I was like, oh, I'll make a table like I've always wanted to. And then after I made that, I posted it, sell it for like $500, and a friend bought it. And then now I see them on social media, like posting pictures of their kid and they're like eating or drawing at that table. I'm like, that is the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I just made this thing, and now these people get to enjoy all of these experiences around that table. I'm like, that's so cool.
Yeah. that
Seeing
is
people
cool.
in the vans, I'm like, that's so rad that,
He's got to travel the country because of the van.
yeah, we helped him do that, It's so
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
Kate?
Yeah, so one last question. What advice would you give your younger self?
Golly. Let's see. I mean, it's kind of the advice I still give myself, which is like you're never doing as good as you think you are, and you're never doing as bad as you think you are.
That's really good.
I
I
mean,
like
there's-
that.
like whenever I was younger, I moved out of my parents' house in like the old Blaze of Glory days, where you're like, "Oh, I'm out of here, Mom."
Yeah.
And then you move out and you're like, what am I doing? And then you get an apartment, you're like, I'm not going to college. I moved out. I'm not talking to my family anymore. I'm all an angsty kid. And then, you can get wrapped up in that downer. But you're like, I'm not doing that bad. I'm still alive and capable of things. And then, yeah, you can build yourself out of those things. And then whenever you're like, feel like you're on top of the world, you're like, oh man, all these people want to buy vans for me and all this. Then it's like, well, don't get ahead of yourself, because, pandemic could show up and you're not going to have that work anymore. Or people realize that maybe you're bad at it, so you always just like have to keep being like, I am growing myself, and that doesn't have anything to do with the surroundings, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
It does.
I hear that.
I like it.
It's good advice.
You always got to keep pushing on yourself and building yourself better, and that'll make everything else better.
Yeah, work on you first.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like
Wicked.
that advice.
There you go,
Hopefully
as easy
that
as
makes
that.
sense.
No, it
does.
does make sense.
Dude,
No.
thanks so much for your time. You've got
Yeah,
a really
appreciate
interesting
it.
story. I love the fact that
Yeah.
I really like the fact that you started off at you don't know if you'll always be doing this. That was a bit of a curveball to start. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed it. I think you've got a great story. I think you've got
Yeah.
something
Maybe next
real
time
good
we can
going.
get into some of the crazy stories.
Yeah, exactly. Wicked. Let's wrap up
Yeah.
at that.
Cheers.
Cool.